Olumide, 1% gain for the market, much needed for a stock exchange that has really suffered in the previous quarter. We see the body light crude price coming down, and Nigeria's market, of course, highly geared to what's going on outside in the developed world. Do you think that we can sustain this uptrend in the market?
I think it's difficult to say, given what we're seeing in the global markets. You have to remember that our markets, as it stands, anywhere between 60% or to 70% of our market is driven by international investors, and they essentially see Nigeria as very much an oil play. So when you say Bonny Light is down to, I think it's about 103 now, I'm not entirely sure if this uptrend that we're seeing is sustainable. And it's really a function of what we're seeing internationally, this global recession that we're likely to see. I think it's going to impact on the Nigerian equity markets negatively.
Let's take a look at the Naira, because that's been in many investors' minds at this point in time, given the fact that it moved out of that peg. And some are saying, could we see a devaluation in the currency going forward? We've got the governor of Nigeria on Power Lunch later today, giving us his take on strategy going forward. What would your question be to the central bank at this point?
Personally, I would be very curious to know if there is some sort of effort to, if only marginally devalue the Naira, or perhaps shift the peg from 150 to maybe 155 or 160, something many analysts would say is more realistic of the value of the Naira. Unfortunately, since July, we've seen the CBN consistently undersupply. I mean, they've been supplying about $350 million every auction on a demand of anywhere between 450 and 500, which is essentially why we are where we are today. I know the CBN has said that they would like to hold that 150 peg plus or minus 3%, but the blip of last week outside that is a note of concern.
Note of concern, as you say, as we have crude prices coming down. What options are there for listed companies or companies in Nigeria to hedge against currency risk?
Well, I think it's actually part of the problem. I think some of the listed companies, I mentioned that essentially the Naira downtrend from where I'm sitting actually started trending downwards from July. I think the global recessionary factor indicated that suggested that the corporates really should start front-loading some of their Naira, their dollar demands. So I think that may actually be what was driving the additional demand for dollars. So in terms of options of what they do, forward contracts, hedging strategies for corporates where they have the option, they should certainly look into it.
Which of the listed companies, when we're looking at big cap stocks in key sectors, which sectors would be most affected by a weakening Naira?
Well, I think the food sector, given that it has quite thin margins and it's very, very competitive, so there's little chance or little option of passing the additional Naira cost to the consumer. I think it would be quite difficult for that particular sector. And if you look at specific companies, if you look at companies like, say, flour mills or Nestle, for instance, that have a dollar, well, I certainly can speak of Nestle that have a dollar financing, that also has a secondary negative effect on their net income.
Going forward, do you believe that the CBN has the foreign exchange muscle to defend the currency at this level?
I think the CBN certainly does. At $33 billion in foreign reserves, they certainly do for probably 6 to 12 months. The question is whether they have the motivation or the desire to. Now, over the last 6 months, the CBN has said so, that they were willing to hold at 150. But this blip makes one question whether that stance has changed.
Especially in light of a slowdown in developed world economic growth and the impacts that might have on the local economic situation, where we've got interest rates sitting at a level where you might question whether going forward you can raise interest rates and increase the cost of doing business and perhaps dampen demand for credit, which would have further implications for the economic growth picture.
Indeed, indeed. It's somewhat unfortunate now that, understandably, we can understand what CBN is trying to achieve, but at interest rates of NPR of 9.25%, I mean, really, at what levels would the real economy borrow? At which levels would a corporate be borrowing?
Yeah, let's just take a quick look at the banking sector, because of course those M&A transactions have been concluded, and it seems that optimism has spilled over into the general equity market. I see rumors around that Standard Bank might be eyeing GT Bank. Have these been verified at all?
From what I've read in the press, I've heard about this, but I don't see much value in it. I mean, I think there was a comment from the managing director of GT saying that GT Bank is not up for sale. And I think there was a similar comment from the Standard Bank managing director saying that there isn't any credibility to this story. There's been many suitors for GT Bank over the last year to 2 years. I don't see any value in that rumor. Besides that, if you look at the price activity on GT Bank, there is no indication that the market even gives that news any level of credibility.
So quashing those rumors as they stand at this point. Thank you very much for your insights today. Olumide Bolumole is the head of institutional sales at BGL Securities.